reporter continued talking about the New World, Egghead, the island of the future, and the massive force surrounding it. The fleet was huge, with over 100 ships of different sizes and classes, including 20 great warships and 300 Zero Marines. It had enough firepower to make a buster call look like a joke. As people were rushing in a panic, someone shouted to another person telling them not to touch the weaponized sea beast. The weather report added that the operation was being led by 9 Navy HQ Vice Admirals, with Admiral Kizaru in charge. Kizaru seemed a bit casual about it, joking with Sento, asking why he didn't just come out and surrender instead of making things difficult. Sento replied, warning Kizaru that if he tried anything like that again, it wouldn't end well. Kizaru teased him, saying he was scared. Sento then mentioned that Grandpa Punk based the Pacifista's lasers on research he'd done on Kizaru's powers. Thinking about it, Sento remarked that war was pretty cool and couldn't believe Kizaru was really there to kill him. Kizaru told him that no one could protect him from the consequences of researching the Void Sentry. He was just a cog in the machine. He added that the fight wasn't really in anyone's best interests and all the destruction they caused was just a loss for them. At this point, it seemed fair to assume that Rob Lucci and the others had failed to complete their assassination mission. Sento thanked the Straw Hats for their efforts. Inside a certain warship, J. Garcia Saturn, the warrior god of the defense science, sat with a few others, making sure no one knew he was there. He mentioned that the Straw Hat pirates had gone to Egghead to take Vegapunk hostage, which was quite the headline. One of the men remarked that it was likely one of Morgan's articles. Jay wondered what the real situation was. The man pointed out that they hadn't yet received word from Cypherpole Zero about whether their mission had been a success, but they could infer things based on Sentomaru's resistance. It couldn't be safely assumed that Dr. Vegapunk and his 7 satellites were still in the Labo Stratum, especially with the 4 Seraphim assigned to protect them. It seemed likely that they had joined forces with the Empire. The Straw Hat crew now had 10 members, and their advance guard included 3 members of CP0 ELAC, Rob Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy. There were also other Cypherpole agents who had been captured in the Fabiro Stratum by Sentomaru and his battalion of Mark III Pacifista. And since the Frontier Dome was currently at 100%, they couldn't be sure whether anyone could get in or out of the Labo Stratum. Unfortunately, they had no way of knowing what had happened inside the dome in the last day or so, or where the researchers and workers of Egghead had gone. One of Jay's men mentioned that they shouldn't dwell on the past, but they had tracked and confirmed the current positions of their ships. The old man wondered what they would do if those ships got away, since they might know something. He ordered them to sink the ships. Immediately, the scene shifted to the ships, where a man told Saint Saturn there was one more thing. Bonnie the Glutton was also reported to be on the island. The old man realized that Kuma's daughter was there as well. They no longer had any use for her, but since she was just a little girl, he considered letting her go. Someone else reported that they had picked up a transmission from Egghead, which seemed to be a long-range call. The call was directed to the Holy Land of Mary Joaz, where a voice on the other end answered. Meanwhile, someone on the ship informed the Admiral that he had a black transponder snail on his left arm, meaning he could listen in. In a room of authority, York complained to the others, saying they were so rude and wondered why they were trying to clean him up. He went on to reveal the betrayal of Stella. Another old man remarked that they had done it again and questioned whether Vegapunk was just as guilty as he was. York mentioned that if it were a century-old secret, why would he blab about it? The man said it didn't make any sense, and York agreed. Another old man commented that if that were the case, York had done well to survive this long. He asked if CP0 had paid him a visit and then inquired about the Straw Hat pirates. York replied that since he was the one calling the shots, he'd let them take a wild guess. He realized that York had control over the Seraphim and that his survival through the night shouldn't have been a shock. Then he asked about the fleet buzzing around the island, wondering if they were planning to wage war on him. One of the men mentioned that, as a matter of fact, they had a change of heart about that. He wondered if he was right in thinking that York was capable of replicating the Mother Flame alone. York asked if they were after something from him, and said he was glad he sent that. The man replied that it was a special request they were acting on. York asked whose request it was, but either way, if it was what they wanted, he'd need a power station to make it happen. He then asked them to promise they wouldn't lay a finger on him or his lovely laboratory. As the old man agreed, York continued, saying he still wanted to be a celestial dragon. The old man said that could be arranged, and York added that he had one more thing to do first before sealing the deal. Then York suddenly started crying, begging them to save him because Straw Hat Luffy was right there and was about to kill him. The others were confused, wondering what was going on. Meanwhile, a few people enjoying the party in the background just cursed the psychos for causing trouble. A girl, exhaling a puff of shisha smoke, said that everything was finally starting to make sense. A boy, munching on some chicken, admitted he didn't really understand the situation but figured they could just use York as a human shield to escape. Another girl wondered if this meant they were under siege. Luffy contacted someone, making it clear that he's the man who will become the Pirate King. The other person was confused, wondering what he was doing. York explained that they were in an alliance with Dr. Vegapunk, and if they cared about his safety, they should pull back from the shore. She was asking them to back off and save everyone. The others were getting frustrated, wondering just how low these guys could go. One person commented that they were exactly as bad as the rumors said. Luffy, overhearing this, was left wondering what was going on over there. The scene shifted to some of the crew sitting in the hall. An old man heard about Straw Hat Luffy and asked who was still alive with him in the labo phase. Luffy responded, saying if he count the injured, he could give a rough number. Someone told Luffy not to say anything else. Suddenly, a girl's voice came through the call, and just like that, it cut off. The old man wondered if it was Nico Robin's voice. On the other end of the call, after it ended, a woman grabbed her head, clearly annoyed. Another woman sitting next to her said that talking to those old guys would just give them more information and they shouldn't wait to learn about them. A boy apologized, agreeing with her, and wondered if that would make them withdraw their fleet. Another boy, angry, warned that even if it did, they shouldn't underestimate the Marines. An old man, whose call had also been cut off, said they had to protect 3 things: York's physical safety, the punk records that hold Vegapunk's brain, and the power plant needed to produce the Mother Flame. Everything else could be sacrificed, but those 3 things were vital. Another man mentioned that Rob Lucci and his team were still there, along with other Cypherpol agents. The old man said he was just considering the worst-case scenario. It was important to prioritize the most critical factors. The other man agreed. The old man added that humans were like insects. If their numbers drop, they'll just multiply again. The man nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, York, crying, said they overheard everything. The deal made with the 5 elders. If they hurt him, they'd wipe the island off the map, just like they did with Ohara. The scene shifted to those on the other end of the call, where Punk was lying down, clearly hurt by a woman. He grunted, saying it hurt, and promised she'd pay for it. Another person said the 5 elders would definitely hear about that. Nami, unfazed, told them to complain all they wanted, no one would care. Someone suggested calming Nami down as she was unarmed. Someone wearing a helmet asked Robin if her wounds were feeling better. Robin thanked the person and said she felt better. The man responded, saying not to think that it made him happy. Meanwhile, someone lying in bed mentioned how ashamed he was, even though he'd faced off with 2 Seraphim. Another person reassured him, saying they could feel his pain, but he should just forget about it and rest. They found Edison, who was crying, and someone was surprised to see that Edison was still alive. Someone else told Edison to stop crying because Lilith was trying to reconnect the comms below. A girl mentioned that, regarding Vegapunk's satellites, 4 were heavily damaged and 2 were destroyed. As she was about to talk about the Straw Hat crew, a man lying down asked Lucci what he was whispering. Lucci replied that it was nothing, just the lucky animal talking to himself. On the ship, someone called out, asking if everything was okay. People were celebrating, with one person mentioning the Straw Hat crew. Another quickly warned not to call them out since they were still enemies. Someone at the party thanked them for the food, saying they owed their lives to those people. They were relieved to be saved and ready to leave, but the person in charge reminded them they couldn't. Someone else asked if at least they could be moved to a different place, as being close to those creatures was giving them the creeps. Then he wondered, weren't the Seraphim supposed to be their allies? Another person agreed, asking, what if they lose control? The first person turned to Vegapunk and asked if he could guarantee their safety. Soon, someone else agreed, explaining that the bubbles were made with the same shield technology used by the Pacifista Mark. A few people were inside the bubbles, and the man continued, saying the bubbles were even resistant to bomb blasts because they were made using the properties of sea prism stone. A boy inside one of the bubbles got angry, asking how the man dared to lock them up like that. The man ignored him and kept talking, saying the bubbles were an effective weapon against devil fruit users. Another man commented that it was impressive that they thought those were just regular soap bubbles. A girl added that the person didn't need to worry since they hadn't been given any orders to eliminate him, and he wasn't a concern for them. The man agreed, saying it was a relief. A guard watching over them said, even so, we're still grateful to SNSKT, and thanked her for undoing the petrification. The scientist replied that it was strange, because he didn't remember programming her to act that way.